What's up, guys? Spegmeister here, bringing you another episode in my legendary guide through Halo 2 Anniversary. On this episode, I'll be covering the 7th mission in the campaign, the Oracle.
What is it? That stench. I've smelled it before.
Right at the start, we'll meet up with our team. I like to give one of the grunts my plasma rifle, and I'll do the same for the other grunt shortly.
Moved on. Quickly before it returns, let's find the Heretic Leader and finish him off.
When you enter this lab space, make sure to destroy the 5 bodies that are lying around.
What happened here? Close your jaws or I shall bind them shut.
See, heretic!
Hold your fire. Hold your fire! I wondered who the prophets would send to silence me. An Arbiter. Unflattered. He's using a hollow drone. He must be close. Come out so we may kill you. Get in line.
Come over to the store and pick up the Sentinel beam.
Stand firm. The flood.
For the first part of this mission, we'll be defending against these infection forms. Aside from giving the grunts plasma rifles, I also equipped 2 of my elites with Covenant carbines. These guys I want to try to keep alive for as long as I possibly can.
Prepare yourself. Heretic fools! What have they done? Go up. I'll follow when our reinforcements arrive.
Before you leave the room, come over here and pick up the fresh energy sword. So when you first come out onto the elevator, you'll be greeted by a few sentinels as well as some combat forms. If you're lucky enough, try to pick up a carbine if one of the combat forms happens to leave one for you. For the time that we're riding this elevator down, we're going to have combat forms that will scale the wall of this elevator shaft from this side as well as to our right. It's not essential to headshot these combat forms from range, however, if any of them land on the platform, you'll want to use your energy sword to get rid of their bodies quickly.
Defeat our Lord, you will not defeat us either.
The main reason I do this is because these containers have infection forms within them. If they ever get destroyed and their bodies lying around, then they can reanimate those combat forms. Which is something new to this game if you played Combat Evolved first. A single place shot to where you're supposed to land a headshot will kill these guys instantly. When these 4 sentinels show up, that'll mean that you're about halfway down this elevator shaft. So as we're continuing our way down this elevator, I'm just trying to keep an eye on both sides for these combat forms. Not only to keep myself safe, but also to keep my teammates alive. If you plan on using the energy sword while you're on the elevator, I recommend using the melee button so that you don't lunge at these guys from a long distance. If you do that, you end up putting yourself at risk for sending yourself off the elevator, which is not good if you're going for a deathless run. At this point, hopefully one of your elites is still alive. 2 makes it easier.
We should have brought weapons to burn these bodies. Every one is a potential vessel for the flood.
Before you drop down into this large laboratory space, make sure to kill off any carrier forms that are down below. There's also some heretic enemies down below as well, but you don't have to make them a giant priority unless if there's a turret looking in your direction.
Heretics above!
After you clear the initial enemies out of this room, a few heretic elites will spawn above you in the same hallway that you came from. Sometimes if they don't come down right away, the combat forms that spawn up there with them can distract them. So with that carrier form down, now the rest of this room is just a holdout area where you just need to survive against multiple combat forms. You can do this by trying to play these guys from range using the carbine, or you can try to lunge at them with the sword. It's quite a fun part to use the energy sword. Keep an eye on your radar, try to stick to one of the edges of the room so that you don't get caught in a really bad position if you take too much fire. And just like the elevator part, make sure to destroy their bodies. You can also come down here and destroy these two turrets, which I'll explain later on. Once the room is clear of the combat forms, a few heretic enemies will spawn at the other end, consisting of a couple of elites and a few grunts. And it's very possible that you could lose your elites at this point, even if they're still equipped with carbines. So then after you deal with the heretic enemies, you'll have a few carrier forms that will drop into the room. And you can take your time to kill them if you want to get additional points. After the room seems clear, go around and pick up any ammo for the carbine, and then pick up a fresh energy sword.
Leader, the storm is about to hit. We cannot maintain our position. Bring the phantoms close to the mine. We are not leaving until the leader of these heretics.
throughout the station. We don't have enough troops to manage such a large infestation. Find the leader of these heretics. Kill him now!
Any forces that you lose during the early portion of this mission, you'll gain from the Phantom when you come outside.
Oh, kind, powerful Arbiter.
So if you come down this walkway, you'll have a couple of elites and a few grunts waiting at the end, just before you head up the ramp. If you're fast enough, you shouldn't lose any of your teammates.
I see one.
Up here, there's usually one or two elites that will be waiting for you. That one I almost didn't catch. And then there's a couple of sentinels. Usually there's one up above and then one down below. These guys you can try ignore if they're not a threat. Up ahead by the doorway that we need to go through, there's a couple more elites and some grunts. But it looks like my teammates did a pretty good job against that wave. In this room, there's just going to be 3 sentinels and some combat forms. Nothing too difficult.
This will save me from the storm, but you will be consumed.
Arbiter, where is he?
Stinking floodbait boxed himself in tight. We'll never break through this.
Then we shall force him out. How? The cable. I'm going to cut it.
Get everyone back to the ships. Return to the landing zone. The Arbiter will continue upward, cut this station loose, and scare the heretic from his hole.
May our lords guide your hand.
We shall not forget your sacrifice. Take my blade. I doubt the cable will stand the fight.
Before you head up this ramp, make sure to swap out for a fresh energy sword. Coming up here, we'll have a few combat forms as well as some carrier forms. You can try to headshot the combat forms from range, which is a safer way to handle this. Up at the very top where we need to get to, there are 3 sentinels. Keep an eye out on your radar for them. And now we're about to enter one of my favorite parts of the game.
All my phantoms are in the air, Arbiter. Go ahead, cut the cable.
So up at the very top of the station, we'll have an engagement between the combat forms and some sentinels. Now these guys do not infinitely respawn. You can fight this out all the way until there are no enemies left in the area. It does require some patience to do this. Just use your energy sword whenever you need to get out of trouble. Or to just simply get out of a corner. You don't want to get yourself positioned where you have combat forms coming at you in two different directions. In case you're wondering how the combat forms get up here, they try to jump from wall to wall to get up on this platform. They spawn directly below this area. When the area seems all clear, then you can go ahead and cut the first cable. And then prepare yourself for the next wave of sentinels and combat forms.
That's one. By the prophet, look at the station list.
This one obviously has a carbine, so I'm glad I didn't get that stick like I was aiming for. Because I do want to collect his ammo if I plan on using the carbine as much as I need to. Once again, cut the cable, and then we have a third and final wave. There's also 3 different energy swords in this area, so pick one up whenever you have the opportunity.
One final cable, Arbiter.
Looks like at this point the enemies are slowly coming in, so I think we're just about clear. And if it does seem clear, then go ahead and cut the third and final cable. and then wait for it. Whoosh.
That's it. The station is in free fall. The Heretic Leader is on the move. Do not let him escape. We'll stay with you as long as we can.
Now coming back into this area once more, we will have some more flood, as well as some heretic enemies this time around. If you plan on fighting this out, just take it slow, keep everything in front of you, just kind of fighting the standard way that you would throughout much of this campaign. Before we get to the elevator, usually there's some grunts and a couple of elites guarding the area. Just take your time, use the active camo to try and slip behind them or get the jump on them.
Are you still alive, Arbiter? We're keeping pace as best we can.
Sometimes when you come down this elevator, there are a couple of grunts here, sometimes there aren't. Same goes for the sentinel that's just outside. Now, depending on whether there are heretic enemies already on the other side of the room, I do like to try to take the left-hand approach because there are a couple of needlers typically over here. And the needlers work pretty well against the elites. So there goes one sword elite, and then there's two. Sometimes there's one with a carbine, which is why I grabbed the dual needlers. But these work pretty well against the sword elites as well. When it looks all clear, make sure to grab the best available energy sword, which might be the one that you're already carrying when you came into this area. Now, if you plan on fighting these banshees out here, what you'll want to do is try hang out by one of these cubby holes by the center structure and try to avoid any of the debris that is flinging up from the bottom of this station. And then if you're lucky enough, you can slip behind the banshees and easily get a couple of kills. You'll have to fight 6 total banshees in this part typically, assuming the debris doesn't already kill them. So just take your time on this part, really just play it safe, and avoid any unnecessary obstacles during this fight. It's a pretty nerve-wracking part, admittingly. So there goes Banshee number 5, and I think this is the final one. Once that's down, just fly across to the other side really quickly before the debris can get you. And that might have been one of the toughest parts of the mission, if you do plan on fighting this out. Alright, now we're actually entering a very familiar part of the mission, which we just went through in the last mission. So all we're doing here is just backtracking our way all the way up to the hangar. In this first room, there are usually a bunch of combat forms, one sentinel or two sentinels and one grunt fighting out. And just outside in this next hallway, a couple more combat forms will come after you, as well as 3 different carrier forms. In this next area, there are usually 2 or 3 sentinels. And then there's also a Heretic Elite that is just up ahead. And he'll usually run away, he will not engage you. If you don't kill him in this room, he'll run into this next hallway. So while these infection forms offer no point value, I do want to kill them so that they don't come back to haunt me. The resistance that you'll face in these halls as you work your way up to the next main room, there isn't a ton of resistance along the way, so you should be able to cruise right through this. Come all the way to the end of this hall, use your active camo before you cross in front of these enemies. Usually there's gonna be one elite, assuming that he doesn't die earlier, and there's one grunt up here with him. Before entering this next room, make sure to destroy the explosives. You don't necessarily have to worry about how much ammo you have in your energy sword at this point. You do, however, want to make sure that you have about 10 energy for when you go into the boss fight. On the other side of the room, there will be some more heretic enemies. The flood will spawn through this doorway, and sometimes one or two carrier forms will come down the conveyor belts, or where the conveyor belts were previously running. And I think I'm only left with this one elite.
Turn, heretic. Arbiter, I would rather die by your hand than let the prophets lead me to slaughter. Who has taught you these lies? The Oracle.
Hello, I am 343 Guilty Spark. I am the monitor of Installation 04.
Ask the Oracle about Halo. How they would sacrifice us all for nothing.
More questions? Splendid. I would be happy to assist you.
The elites are blind, Arbiter. But I will make them see.
Alright, as soon as you exit the cutscene, activate your active camo and go straight for the Heretic Leader. When you do enough damage to him, the holograms will deactivate. Now, ideally, you want to try to kill the Heretic Leader before he tries to jump, or when he jumps down, so that you don't have to fight his holograms for too long. Now, this part is going to be a little bit tricky, but we'll see how we do. I may have to fight some of his holograms. But there I managed to hit the actual Heretic Leader.
And defensive measures against the powers of D&D. I designed and oversaw the construction of this facility's various outbreak management systems.
This facility, and dozens like it devoted to the study of the parasite. But there are the weapons, Arbiter. What was the result? All that time and effort, and the best the Forerunners could do was put these foul creatures to rights. And now where are these gods the Forerunners worship? Transcended? Ha 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 ha! Hardly. Come, Arbiter. Let me show them where they went.
And we'll see if we can try to get him here pretty quickly. If you're not, try to just get away from his holograms and move to a safer location.
How did you ever make it past the flood?
And there goes the Heretic Leader, so I got really lucky that I didn't have to fight too many of the holograms.
Unfortunate. His edification was most enjoyable.
I had no choice, Holy Oracle. This heretic imperiled the great journey.
Oracle, great journey. Why do you meddlers insist on using such inaccurate verbiage?
That is the Oracle. So it is. Come, we are leaving this system.
And with that, that is the end of the Oracle. So this mission, while I wouldn't describe it as one of the most difficult missions in the game, but this is one of those missions where you can die in a lot of variable ways. I've had instances where I've lost teammates from friendly fire. That actually happened in this mission, but only happened to a grunt, so not a big concern. I've had instances where I've been killed by friendly fire, or it's just I get killed by the enemies in such different ways. So it's kind of a mission where you just want to try to take it slow, even though there aren't a ton of difficult engagements. Just try to keep everything in front of you as best you can. Take out enemies from range whenever there are possibilities to save up on your energy sword. And then for the boss fight, I didn't explain it too well, but what you can do is try to track the Heretic Leader, use the energy sword when he jumps down, and you can usually land a hair or two and his holograms will disappear and you won't have to fight any of them. But unfortunately on this run that wasn't the case, but I was still able to take advantage of opportunities to hide behind a piece of cover and stick my head out to stick one of the enemies and then go back into cover without drawing too much attention. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this guide. Thank you all for tuning in on today's episode. I appreciate all the support I'm getting, and hopefully I will catch you in my next guide or any of my past guides. So hope you all have a good day or night, and I'll see you next time.